A widowed mother loses everything after her husband's death and ends up living at the bus station with her two daughters. But when a child is in danger, she acts without thinking, and her courage catches the eye of a powerful millionaire who changes her life in unimaginable ways. What happens next will leave you speechless. Subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. The New York City sky unleashed its fury on that cold night in June. Among the dozens of people seeking shelter under the awnings of the city's grey buildings, Rebecca Soares clutched her two 5-year-old girls to her chest. Lily and Luna, with their tangled red hair and deep blue eyes, just like their mothers, trembled with cold as the heavy raindrops bounced off the asphalt just inches from them. "We'll be okay, my little ones," Rebecca whispered, kissing the tops of the twins' heads. In her blue eyes, once full of life, there was now only the weariness of someone fighting against the impossible. "We'll find a place to spend the night soon." 6 months ago, Rebecca couldn't have imagined she'd be in this situation. She had a stable job as an administrative assistant, a modest house in the suburbs of New York, and above all, she had Matthew, her life partner, the father of her daughters, the man who made her believe that everything would always work out in the end. But life is full of unexpected turns. The cancer that devastated Matthew's body in just a few months also took away all the couple's dreams and plans. The savings money was consumed by treatments, medicines, exams. Then came the debts, and then the eviction. Rebecca looked at the sky, now partially clear. The rain was diminishing, and her eyes caught the last bus of the night approaching the stop. With nowhere to go, but with the protective instinct of a lioness, she decided, "We're going to the bus station, girls. We'll have a roof over our heads for tonight." The three boarded the almost empty bus. The driver, an older gentleman with deep wrinkles around his eyes, observed the red-haired woman and the two children, all with worn clothes and downtrodden looks. When Rebecca started looking for some coins in her worn bag, he just shook his head. "No need to pay tonight, Mum," he said with a tired smile. "Sometimes we need a helping hand, don't we?" That small act of kindness made Rebecca's eyes fill with tears that she didn't allow to fall. Not in front of the girls. She needed to be strong. "Thank you," she replied, her voice choked with emotion. "God bless you." The journey to the Port Authority bus terminal, one of the largest in the nation, took about 40 minutes. When they got off, Rebecca felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as she gazed at the enormous complex before her. The place was less crowded at that time of night, but there was still a constant flow of people. Tired travelers, bus drivers, cleaning staff, some guards patrolling. Rebecca led the girls to a more secluded corner where some empty benches would welcome them for the night. She took a thin blanket out of her backpack, the last one she managed to save before leaving the house, and covered Lily and Luna, who snuggled up to each other. "Mommy, I'm hungry," murmured Lily, the more talkative of the two. Rebecca's heart ached. She had spent the last coins on a simple bread roll that she had divided between the three of them for lunch. Now she had nothing left to offer her daughters. "Let's sleep now, my love," she said, running her fingers through the girl's hair. "We'll find something to eat early tomorrow." But sleep didn't come. Rebecca remained seated, vigilant, watching her sleeping daughters and the movement of the bus station around her. She feared that some security guard would kick them out, or worse, that some malicious person would approach. Exhaustion eventually overcame her, and Rebecca fell into a light and restless sleep. She was awakened by a gentle and wrinkled voice like ancient parchment. "Ma'am, ma'am, wake up." Rebecca opened her eyes with a start, her first instinct being to protect her daughters. Before her, an old woman with hair as white as snow and skin marked by time watched her with kind brown eyes. In her wrinkled hands, she held a steaming cup. "Sorry to startle you," the old woman said. "My name is Eleanor. I've been selling flowers here at the bus station for over 30 years. I saw you arrive last night." Rebecca straightened up, still suspicious. The big city had taught her to be cautious. I brought you some hot tea, Eleanor continued, extending the cup. And I have something for the girls, too. From a colorful cloth bag, the elderly woman took out 2 warm muffins, wrapped in napkins. You didn't have to bother, Rebecca said, touched by the gesture but hesitant to accept. It's no bother at all, Eleanor replied, with a smile that illuminated her aged face. I've been where you are, dear. I know what it's like to be hungry and have nowhere to go. Something in the sincerity of that woman made Rebecca lower her guard. She accepted the tea and the muffins, and soon Lily and Luna were awake, eating avidly while curiously watching the white-haired woman. You have a way with flowers, Eleanor commented, watching Rebecca tidy Luna's hair into a makeshift braid. Your fingers are delicate and precise. Rebecca smiled slightly. I've always liked flowers. When we had our house, I kept a small garden in the backyard. Eleanor's eyes sparkled. I have a proposal for you, dear. I'm getting old, and my legs can no longer stand being all day walking around the bus station. How about you help me sell the flowers? We can split the profits, and you would have at least something to feed those beautiful girls. The proposal fell like a blessing for Rebecca. It was a chance to start over, however small, an opportunity to guarantee at least the basic food for her daughters. She accepted immediately, with teary eyes. That same morning, Eleanor brought a bouquet of daisies and roses and taught Rebecca how to approach the passengers without being intrusive, how to negotiate the price, how to keep the flowers fresh longer. The twins sat on a nearby bench, drawing with some colored pencils that the old woman had brought. The first day was difficult. Many people ignored Rebecca or looked at her with suspicion because of her worn clothes and tired appearance. But she persisted, and by the end of the day, she had sold almost half of the flowers. It wasn't much, but it was enough to guarantee a simple dinner for 3. In the days that followed, Rebecca established a routine. She woke up early, washed herself and the girls in one of the bus station bathrooms, tidied herself up as best she could with the few clothes they had, and started her workday selling flowers. Eleanor, realizing the young woman's effort and dedication, began to bring used but clean and in good condition clothes that she got from acquaintances. It's not charity, she made a point of saying to Rebecca, who was reluctant to accept more help. It's solidarity. One day you'll do the same for someone. At night, when the bus station became emptier, Rebecca and the girls retreated to the same corner they had adopted as their little refuge. Now at least they had a better blanket and stomachs that didn't hurt with hunger. But life on the streets, even having an unlikely roof like the bus station, was not easy. The New York winter was ruthless, and the cold nights made the twins tremble even under the blanket. In addition, there were the looks of disapproval, the whispered comments, the occasional approaches of security guards who questioned their presence there. It was during one of these approaches, on a particularly cold night in July, that Rebecca's life took a new turn. "You can't stay here," said a burly security guard with an authoritarian voice. "This is not a shelter." Rebecca stood up, her hands trembling. "Please, sir. We just need a place to spend the night. My daughters are little. It's very cold outside." The security guard hardened his gaze. "Rules are rules. Either you leave quietly or I'll have to call the police." "Please," Rebecca begged, feeling despair grow. "Just tonight. Tomorrow we'll look for another place." "I've heard that before," retorted the man, taking a step towards them. "Come on, get your stuff and—" "Is there a problem here?" The deep and firm voice cut through the tension like a sharp knife. Rebecca and the security guard turned at the same time to face the source of that sound. A tall, elegant man, wearing a dark overcoat over an impeccably tailored suit, watched them with penetrating blue eyes. His black hair, cut with precision, framed a face with strong and defined features. "This is a security matter, sir," replied the security guard, visibly uncomfortable. "I'm just following orders." The man raised an eyebrow and approached closer, emanating an aura of authority that made the security guard instinctively back away. I believe your orders also include treating citizens with dignity and respect, he said, his voice calm but laden with unwavering firmness. This lady and her daughters are not disturbing anyone. On the contrary, they are only seeking shelter in a public space. But, sir, the regulations— I know the regulations well, the man interrupted. And I also know the basic principles of humanity. I suggest you find real problems to solve. Something in the man's tone or posture made the security guard mutter an apology and quickly walk away. Rebecca stood paralyzed, torn between relief and surprise, as she watched her unlikely defender. "Thank you," she managed to say finally. "I don't know what would have happened if—" "No need to thank me," he replied, with a restrained smile. "No one should be treated that way." His blue eyes met Rebecca's, and for a fleeting moment, something inexplicable passed between them, a kind of mutual recognition, as if their souls had met somewhere before. "My name is Richard," he said, extending his hand. "Richard Gallagher." "Rebecca Suarez," she replied, shaking his hand briefly, aware of her own rough hands against his smooth skin. "And these are my daughters, Lily and Luna." The twins, who had watched the whole scene with wide eyes, smiled shyly. Richard bent down to be at their level. "Hello, princesses," he said, with a gentleness that contrasted with the firmness he had shown moments before. "You have very pretty hair, you know. They look like little flames." Lily giggled, while Luna, always more reserved, just smiled, partially hiding her face on her mother's shoulder. "Are you hungry?" Richard asked, looking at Rebecca as if asking permission for the question. Rebecca hesitated. Her pride struggled against the need. The girls had eaten only a simple sandwich hours ago, and she knew they were hungry again. "A little," she admitted, lowering her gaze. Richard nodded understandingly. "There's a diner nearby. Nothing fancy, but the food is good and honest." There was something in the way he spoke, without pity, without condescension, just genuine kindness, that made Rebecca accept the invitation, even reluctantly. The diner was really simple, as he had said. Formica tables, plastic chairs, a long counter where some travelers were having coffee. Richard led Rebecca and the girls to a table in the corner, away from the main traffic, and asked the waiter to bring the menu. "Order whatever you want," he said, with an encouraging smile. The twins looked at their mother, who nodded slightly, giving them permission. Soon, the table was full of food: sandwiches, French fries, soda for the girls, and coffee for the adults. Rebecca watched her daughters eat with an appetite that she hadn't seen in weeks and felt a mixture of gratitude and shame. "Thank you," she said to Richard when she finally managed to find her voice. "I don't know how to thank you for this." Richard smiled, a smile that reached his eyes and made them shine like sapphires under the yellowish light of the diner. "No need to thank me, Rebecca. Sometimes the world gives us more than we need just so we can share it with others." During the meal, they talked a little. Rebecca told about Matthew, about how his illness had devastated not only her life, but also the family's financial stability. She spoke about the eviction, about how they had arrived at the bus station, about Eleanor and the flowers. "And you?" she asked, suddenly curious about the man who was helping them. "What brings you to the bus station on a night like this?" Richard hesitated, as if carefully choosing his words. "Business," he replied finally. "I'm involved in an urban development project in the area." Something in the way he spoke left Rebecca with the impression that there was much more behind that simple explanation, but she didn't insist. After all, they barely knew each other. At the end of the meal, when the twins were already starting to doze in the chairs, Richard paid the bill and offered to accompany them back to their corner in the bus station. "I don't want that security guard to bother you again," he explained. "On the way," he asked, "haven't you considered looking for a shelter? There are organizations that could help you, at least temporarily." Rebecca sighed. "I tried, but most are full. And the few that have vacancies separate mothers from children. I can't leave my girls, Richard. They've already lost their father. I can't let them think they've lost their mother too." The determination in her voice touched something deep in Richard. He looked at her with a new respect, admiring her strength despite the circumstances. "I understand," he said simply, "but if you allow me, I would like to help you in some way." Rebecca stopped walking, turning to face him. "Why? You don't even know me." Richard reflected for a moment before answering. "Maybe because, deep down, we all need to believe that there is goodness in the world. That, if one day we are in trouble, someone will reach out to help us." Rebecca didn't know what to say to that. Richard accompanied them to the corner where they slept, and before saying goodbye, he took a card from the inside pocket of his jacket. "My number," he said, handing it to Rebecca. "If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call." She accepted the card, thanked him once more, and watched as he walked away, his tall and elegant figure disappearing into the crowd of the bus station. That night, Rebecca slept with Richard's card secure in her pocket and a persistent thought in her mind. How could someone with so much care about someone who had nothing? In the days that followed, Rebecca continued her routine of selling flowers at the bus station. Eleanor noticed a subtle change in her, a new gleam in her eyes, perhaps, or a slightly more hopeful posture. But Rebecca didn't mention Richard to the old woman. It seemed something too precious, too fragile to be shared. One Thursday morning, about a week after meeting Richard, Rebecca woke up and found, near the bench where they slept, a bag. Inside there were fresh sandwiches, juices, fruits, and to her surprise, 3 new and soft blankets. "Mommy, look!" exclaimed Lily, pulling a small teddy bear out of the bag. "There's one for me and one for Luna." Rebecca felt her heart race. She knew who had left that there, even without any note or signature. She looked around, hoping to see Richard, but he was not in sight. That was just the first of many surprises that began to appear for them. Sometimes it was food, other times new and warm clothes. Once they found a small personal hygiene kit with shampoos, soaps, and even a soft perfume for Rebecca. She never managed to catch Richard leaving the packages, but she felt his presence, as if he were always nearby, watching from afar, making sure they were okay. Sometimes she thought she had seen him glimpse, a tall man in a dark suit disappearing into the crowd, but when she tried to follow him, he was already gone. "You have an angel watching over you," Eleanor commented one morning, seeing the twins' new clothes. "I don't know if it's an angel," replied Rebecca with a half-smile, "but it's certainly someone very kind." The truth is that Rebecca felt divided about this mysterious help. On the one hand, she was deeply grateful. On the other, her wounded pride yearned for independence. She didn't want to be a charity case. She wanted to regain her autonomy, her ability to take care of her own daughters without depending on donations. It was with this in mind that she decided to expand her horizons. With the money from the flowers, she bought material to make small crafts, bracelets, simple necklaces, hair ornaments. In her spare time, while the girls played under Eleanor's watchful eye, Rebecca created delicate pieces that she began to sell along with the flowers. To her surprise, business was going well. Many travelers, especially tourists, liked to take a souvenir from New York, and her pieces, made with care and good taste, attracted glances and buyers. Friday morning dawned clear and sunny, an atypically warm day for the New York winter. The bus station was especially busy, with the intense flow of those traveling to enjoy the weekend. Rebecca had had a good morning of sales and decided to take a break to take the girls to the food court. That's when she heard the scream, a high-pitched, childish scream, full of terror. Rebecca turned instinctively in the direction of the sound and saw a little girl of about 6 years old, with a flowered dress and dark hair tied in pigtails, standing dangerously close to the edge of the boarding platform. A bus was approaching slowly, and the girl seemed paralyzed with fear, unable to move. Without thinking twice, Rebecca dropped her flowers and crafts and ran. Time seemed to slow down as she crossed the distance that separated her from the child. She felt her lungs burn with the effort, her muscles protest, but did not slow down the pace. In the last second, when the bus was almost over the little girl, Rebecca reached her. In a quick and desperate movement, she grabbed the child by the waist and threw herself back, both falling on the hard floor of the platform, safe but shaken, while the bus passed inches from where they were. "Emily! Emily!" Rebecca heard the anguished cries even before getting up. An elegant woman, with brown hair tied in an elaborate bun, ran towards her, her face contorted in dread and relief at the same time. "You saved my daughter," said the woman, taking the girl in her arms and hugging her tightly. "My God, you saved my Emily." Rebecca got up, feeling a sharp pain in her arm that had hit the ground during the fall. "Is she okay? Is she hurt?" The woman examined her daughter quickly, checking for injuries. "She's fine, thank God. And thanks to you." It was then that Rebecca heard another voice, this one terribly familiar. "Catherine! Emily!" Richard ran towards them, his normally composed expression now taken by pure panic. Upon reaching them, he hugged the woman and the girl at the same time, so tightly that Rebecca feared he might hurt them. "What happened?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Emily wandered off while I was checking the schedules," explained the woman, Catherine between sobs. "When I realized it, she was already on the platform and the bus. My God, Richard, if it weren't for this woman." Richard turned finally to Rebecca, and the expression on his face changed from pure relief to recognition, and then to something deeper, more complex. "Rebecca," he murmured, as if he couldn't believe it. "You know her?" asked Catherine, surprised. Richard nodded slowly, without taking his eyes off Rebecca. "Yes, we know each other." It was only then that Rebecca understood the situation. The girl was Catherine's daughter, and Catherine and Richard were, what? Husband and wife? The thought made her feel an inexplicable pang of disappointment. "You make a lovely family," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Richard seemed confused for a moment, until comprehension dawned on him. "No, it's not what you're thinking," he said quickly. "Catherine is my sister. Emily is my niece." "Oh," was all Rebecca could say, feeling a relief that surprised her by its intensity. "It's you."